What is going on, everyone? This is Dr. Josh Funk, and you are listening to the Strength and Knowledge Podcast.
What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zach Baker of Rehab to Perform and R2P Academy. And today on our episode, I've got with me actually one of my former students. Peter Yu is with us today. Peter, thanks for coming on.
Hey, what's up, Zach? Thanks for having me, man.
Definitely. It's been, a few years since you've been up at our Frederick location as a student. I've been following along just with what you've been getting into down in Florida, and you've got a lot of really cool things going on. I love seeing what you're doing on social media. The facility that you have looks awesome. Some of the stuff you've gotten into with the community down there looks great as well. Do you mind just giving the listeners a little bit of a background of kind of who you are and what you're currently doing from a employment standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, Zach. Well, as Zach kind of alluded to, I actually ended up doing my last clinical with Z-Man himself and Jared. I haven't really heard much from Jared, but I know he's somewhere out in the NBA. But that was kind of where got some of my first experience to some of that sports rehab type stuff. And then after I graduated PT school in 2019, ended up starting up my own cash-based practice down here in Jacksonville, Florida. And then, kind of since then, just slowly been at it since. Learned a lot of lessons throughout the last, I think, almost 4 years now as we've kind of grown down here. But it's myself. I've got 3 other PTs and then 2 other admin staff here in Jacksonville, Florida.
That's awesome. And I know when you were a student, you'd kind of always expressed interest of getting into more of the entrepreneurial side of physical therapy, opening a clinic. Is that something that you always wanted to do, or did that thought process kind of come along while you were in school or as you were navigating clinical rotations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always think about this question because this is something that people ask me all the time. And I never know whether or not like entrepreneurship is something that like you're born with or something that you just kind of find, but I was just thinking like growing up, I think I've always just had that like hustler mentality. And I don't think I ever told you this while I was on my clinical, but like while I was in high school, I was like really, really big into the sneaker game. So I was like into like selling and reselling Jordans, and then, using those like chat bots to get some of these coveted, higher Jordans and then reselling them for a higher price. So that was kind of what I was always into in high school. And then in college and PT school, I actually ended up learning how to barber. And I had like a little side gig of, Pete's Barbershop on the side throughout college and PT school. So I don't know. I always enjoy kind of being able to figure out things on my own, kind of develop things. But in terms of like being exposed to the more clinical side of like, or as well as the business side of physical therapy, I never really thought about, whether it was going to be insurance versus cash-based until one of my earlier rotations that I went on was actually with Ease and Made to Move. And kind of when I got exposed to that setting, that was really kind of when I got the idea of like, oh, wow, like you can set up a shop inside a CrossFit gym and treat CrossFitters and, this is what you get to do. So kind of just opened up like another whole aspect of physical therapy that I never really could have thought was possible. And kind of since then, I kind of just had the idea of, hey, this is kind of what I think I would like to do. And, I think like when I first started up, it was really just so like I could, have a job that I really enjoy for myself. But, over the last couple of years, that's slowly turned into, okay, like how can I almost provide this opportunity for other clinicians as well too, as we grow. So I think like, when I first started, I never had the intention of, kind of getting to where I am now. But I think with every year that, passes by, I'm just exposed to more and more opportunities that I, never thought was possible. And I think that's really one of the cool things about entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. I got to admit, though, I'm a little upset with you. You let me walk around with a goofy haircut and some raggedy shoes the whole time you were up there in the clinical. You could have hooked me up, man.
I know. I was like, man, this guy Zach, he's just walking around with like a, I think it's probably like a 2 or 3 guard clipper size, just like a buzz cut all around. I was like, my man can definitely do with like a little bit of a tight fade or something like that. But next time I catch you.
I've never been accused of being the best dressed or most fashionable anywhere we've gone. No, I like what you said though about like entrepreneurship. I don't know if you seek that out or if it finds you or if you're born with it. I'm a big believer that a lot of the successful entrepreneurs out there are admittedly just doing stuff that they're innately passionate about. And I think you gravitate towards things that you care about. You put more time and effort into things that, one, you're skilled at, or two, you think that you can make a positive change for that. And oftentimes, once you get a little bit of traction, things organically start to pop up. And I think it's just a matter of recognizing what your strengths are, recognizing how you want a general vision of how you would like your career to unfold. And then you just got to get your foot in the door. You got to connect with people who have been there or connect with people and networks of people that you enjoy being around. And I think more oftentimes than not, positions and careers kind of open up that way. And it's funny. I think, I've talked to other people who I asked them, well, what did you envision your career turning out like, or what was your vision? And they're like, I'm focused on like the next 3 months, not 10 years from now. And just kind of constantly putting one foot in front of the other, and things start to open and present themselves with that. So the question I have for you though, and this is something admittedly that we went through here at R2P when Josh and I opened, he started the company, brought me on as his first employee, and it was just the two of us. We were treating, we were running the front desk, we were doing the marketing, we were doing the billing. We weren't doing any of that good, but we were doing it in the beginning. You get to a crossroads, though, where you can't do it all. And you have to bring on other people. You have to bring on more clinicians. You have to bring on support staff. And it is an interesting crossroads because a lot of people set out opening their own clinic because they want things done the way that they want it done. Hey, I want to have this niche boutique type offering. I think really highly of what I do, and I don't want to turn into that big corporation. Well, guess what happens? People figure out that you're really good at doing what you do, and your schedule gets busy. So now you're stuck with that crossroads of, all right, well, I can either turn people away and say that I can't help them, or I can look for like-minded people. How did you navigate that crossroads of when you started to get busier and you couldn't accommodate everybody? Did you ever envision that happening? And two, how was that process of finding people to join your team and training them up the way that you wanted them to be trained?
Yeah, I think, when me and Josh go to school, went to PT school, I don't think any of like both of us really imagined, hey, like we're going to PT school to open up our bonuses, right? I think both ended up going to PT school because we wanted just to be a good physical therapist and help each other and help other people. But I think it's exactly what you said, right? Like as you develop a niche and you slowly start to have a wait list, it's like, okay, well, I can help we'll say like 30 or 40 people in a week or X amount of number. Well, how much more people would I be able to impact and help if I were to bring exactly what you said, right? Other like-minded clinicians to come on board, and especially if they share the same, not only the same mission but also the same values as well too. I think that can go a long ways to ultimately impact so many more people than if you were to only be able to do it yourself, right? And I think that's definitely one of the hard things that I look back on in the earlier years is like I was so hard to let go of like treating and clinical hours, right? Just because I knew that was exactly what I was so good at. I didn't know jack shit about marketing. I didn't know jack shit about leadership or managing the back end administrative stuff. But I knew how to get people better, right? And I think that's like for me one of my bigger lessons that I learned in the earlier years is like, man, if I should have let go of clinical hours like way earlier, and let other people who are honestly probably better than me at treating do that stuff and then focus more on the other back end things. I think too for me to this day, like learning how to delegate and letting go is still something that I'm trying to learn. It's just so hard. I think like as a small business owner that you almost kind of just want your hands in it, a little bit of everything, right? Just because it's your baby. But I think that's definitely one of the biggest lessons that I learned, especially this year, is just like, hey, like people are really good at what they do, and you just have to let go and trust them. So I think just letting go of a lot of the things it's definitely one of the hard things, but one of the things I'm still learning to do as well too.
I remember, gosh, it's probably been like 6 or 7 years now, Josh having the conversation with me as we started to build out a staff. And to put things in perspective, like the first people we hired, there was Josh and myself, and then Karen Farrar, who actually went to PT school with us, and then she transitioned into home health at a later date. And now she's got some pretty cool initiatives going on herself in that realm as well. And then we brought on Jared Boyd, who's currently director of rehab with the Memphis Grizzlies. We brought on Anthony Iannarino, who is a PT with the Washington Wizards. And then we had Caleb Fatzinger and Jamie Schindler, who are both in leadership positions within our company. Jamie overseeing our Anne Arundel County offices, Caleb overseeing our Columbia office, and he also helped open our Mount Airy location and open our Germantown location. So it's kind of funny. You bring these people on with the intentions of, oh, they're just an extra, set of hands in the clinic. They're going to be highly qualified clinicians that can help us out. And they turn into being extensions and branches of the company that allow you to do other initiatives. And it was funny, going back to the point, Josh said, we're bringing these people on. At some point, I have to get comfortable with no longer being the smartest person in the room, because we're bringing on really good PTs, and people who we thought were really good PTs ended up being phenomenal PTs. And you don't know what you don't have until you bring other people into the mix. And it really is that, kind of rising tide lifts all ships. It allows you to better allocate your time and resources into areas of the business that could use that time. And you can put people in the right seats and in the right positions to really leverage their strengths. And that's been something where personally my role has gone from a staff PT to a clinic director to a regional director to now overseeing all clinical operations. And the challenge for me has been everybody that I'm overseeing is doing a role that I used to do. So it's how well can I reflect back on the stuff that I did, the roles and responsibilities that I had, the systems and processes we had in place, really as benchmarks to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. And how can we have somebody come into that position and not only function in that role, but then make it that much better? And it's kind of funny because every single time somebody replaces me in a role, after about 6 months, they get through that initial onboarding process, and then they start getting into their own groove, and they reach out and they're like, Zach, why haven't we done it this way? Why are we doing this a certain way? And I'm like, you know what? I never thought about that, but I like it. Let's update it, and then we're going to train everybody else to do it that way. And it's funny. It's like an evolution of the company and an evolution of the roles, and it's ultimately like what you're going through right now is you keep leveling up to these different realms of the business ownership, organizational hierarchy, and it allows you to then build up that foundation even stronger. Which kind of leads me to my next question for you, and I don't even know if you have an answer for this, but based on how things have gone and the trajectory that they've taken, do you have any sort of like end game of what you would like to see your company get to? Like, is it something where you're set with regards to the size that you're at, and now it's just about optimizing what you have? Is it further expansion with additional clinicians or additional clinical sites? Is it adding other types of services? Where do you see your company going?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's honestly one that I think about at the beginning of every year. And then, you go into the year with a certain, expectation and goal in mind. And then at the end of the year, it's just like wildly, completely different, right? I think, I don't know if I have exactly what you said. I don't know if I have an answer for this, but there's a book out there called, I think it's like Finite and Infinite Games by Simon Sinek. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. It's on my queue, but I have not gotten to it yet.
It's really good. So he talks about how you have things such as like finite games, right, where there are certain rules and and time parameters. For example, like a basketball game, right? Hey, there's a certain amount of rule where you have certain quarters, you have like a certain amount of ways you can score points, and then there's a winner and a loser, right? And then he also talks about the philosophy and the idea of like an infinite game, where it's something like you're like the business, right? Where like the only objective of the game is to stay in the game for as long as possible, right? There's no, definition of what a winner looks like, just because the rules are all arbitrary. It's just completely based off of what you think is like, what is the right way to play. And there is really no right or wrong way to play. And so I think for me, like as of right now, is just being able to continue to, improve upon, what we currently have in place. And I think like with what you guys, like one of the philosophies and values you guys have over at RTP is say, hey, being greater than you were yesterday, right? And I think that really speaks to me too. It's just like, hey, can we evolve our business in a way that's, that so that we're better next year than we were this year, right? And whether that means adding on another clinician, adding on a second location, adding on new services, right? It doesn't necessarily really matter, right? It may not even mean that. It may just mean, hey, like, are we refining our system so that we're operating a little bit more efficiently than we were today? So I think it's right now is just, hey, like, my vision is just to, hey, like, let's see how large we can get this thing, right? I think, the answer that I give today, I'll probably look back on the following year and like what it actually is will be completely different. But I think like as long as we're trending in the right direction, and continue to improve upon things, that for me is the definition of success.
I like how you pointed out there really the definition of success is relatively arbitrary, and for different people it means different things. And for some business owners, it means getting to a point in their career where they definitively control their schedule and their time. And that may mean, hey, I never work before noon, or I never work after 3 p.m. For other people, that idea of success is I have a company large enough and profitable enough that I can cash out and retire and live X lifestyle moving forward. For some, it's a little bit less tangible. It's, how many lives can I change, or how many from a patient standpoint or from a colleague standpoint. So it's interesting, and it's funny because you look back at what other people have done within our field and with other fields. And, if you ask them, were they successful? A lot of people would probably say yes. And their reasons for that success would be very, very different. And it's funny. I think the best thing that you can do is just continually get feedback from your peers that you're working with. Hey, is this a good working environment? Are we fulfilling everything that we said we would for you? And is there anything that we can improve upon? Then it's the $1 million question of, can we actually improve upon that? Is that something we have the ability to do so? Or do we just need to provide them with the rationale of like, hey, this is why things are this way. We can make the best of it. But this is the limitation that we're working with, and this is how we're navigating it. And I think from a business ownership and management standpoint, that level of transparency with your peers goes a long way. And I think people start to realize if they understand the why as to how operations are being run the way that they are, there's less skepticism, there's less criticism if they understand what the people who are running the ship are going up against. And they know that it's not just, a lack of knowledge or a lack of, it's not apathy or that they don't care. It's just, this is kind of how the cards are dealt, and this is the best way that we can play them, but we can't really swap out any of those cards. Peter, for people who are currently in PT school, or that maybe they're a new grad and they have thoughts of clinical ownership, what if you had to look back on just kind of, I know you said there's a lot of hiccups you've had along the way, as we all have, what would be one that you would either categorize as like the most surprising or unexpected to you? Or what was just something unforeseen that you didn't see being as big of a challenge as it was?
Oh man, I think the best way to describe that is really just, you don't know what you don't know, right? And I think like for me, like my first year was really like my main problem was like, okay, like marketing, right? Where the hell am I going to get my next patient? But as you kind of, ascend up the ladder of, of growth and whatnot, marketing really doesn't become the issue. It's really like the main thing becomes, systems and really people. I think, like those are, the main things that, I would say like is the main bottleneck for the majority of businesses as they continue to scale is, figuring out systems, making them more efficient, and then having the right people in place, right? And so I think, like for me, I never, if you told me that, like, 4 years earlier, I would I would have never believed you, right? I think like I would have just thought, okay, like, no, I need to figure out my marketing. But it's really just, as you continue to kind of go through every year, and as you continue to grow, you'll find the issues that only occur at like the 7 figure mark that you would have never, been exposed to when you're only doing, a number lower than that. And same thing when you get up to the 8 figure mark, right? And so, I don't really know if that answered your question, Zach.
No, it's good, and I think it highlights that you have to go into everything with a plan, but you appreciate that that plan is only as good as the knowledge that you have going into it, and you have to go into that plan knowing at some point it's going to be an ineffective plan and we need to modify. And going on to your marketing, that's something before R2P. I was working at another private practice in Frederick, but I was also doing strength and conditioning stuff on the side. I had set up my own LLC. I was doing individual workouts. I was doing team workouts. And I had been exposed to marketing from that, but it was very informal, word of mouth. Things kind of came pretty naturally with that. Getting into R2P and being involved with some of the marketing efforts early on and continual now, it was tough. And it was something where I went into everything with the mindset of trying to track like a direct return on investment. Hey, I went to this event and it ended up yielding 2 new initial evaluations, or I sent out this massive email marketing campaign and it led to X, Y, and Z, which it doesn't always work that way. And it's something where you are going to be involved in a lot of marketing efforts that you don't see that immediate direct ROI, but it was still highly productive. It still got you in front of people. You became a presence. You become top of mind awareness. You start to get an idea of what events require active participation and what events require passive participation. So I think there's a lot of just learning that happens through, I don't want to say going through the motions, but going through the paces of clinical ownership and management. And marketing is one that you hit the nail on the head. It comes down to knowing what your target audience is. How can you get in front of them? What are the different ways that you can get in front of them? And with those different methods, what's the best way to communicate, or what is your best outcome that you're hoping to achieve? Is it educational? Is it becoming building rapport in the community, showing that you have a genuine interest in that area? Is it hopefully direct referrals? Are we going into a physician's office hoping to directly lead to more referrals? And I think until you even sit down and put that on paper, it is just going to be kind of throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what sticks. So marketing, thankfully, I am just very loosely involved with that at our company. Most of the marketing I'm involved in is other initiatives that we have from a mentorship standpoint, from an educational standpoint, that indirectly leads to marketing efforts. But yeah, that's a whole beast in and of itself. Peter, I appreciate it. Oh yeah, what's up?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I think that's also what's so fun about it too, right? It's just like there's just so many layers to marketing and all these other different layers to business. And I think that to me is what's also so, attractive, what keeps me, motivated too, right? It's just like I really enjoy, learning all these different tactics to kind of unlock this next level, right? But yeah.
Yeah, and some of those things you had alluded to scale. Like you have the ability when you are a certain size of a company to be directly involved in all of it, whether it's marketing, whether it's payroll, whether it's clinical caseload, whether it's training people. And then you get to a certain size where you only have so much bandwidth to do all of that, or at least to do it all at a high level. And you may be able to get away with it when you have 3 or 4 employees. When you get to 10, 12, 15, 20, you're going to be spread too thin. And that's where small problems that you could sweep under the rug with a few people become large problems when you are operating at a larger scale. So it's it's exciting to see you go through this kind of evolution as a business owner and as a PT, the success that you're having with that, and more importantly, the fact that you're enjoying it and that it's something that at least to my impression, it looks like it fills you up on a personal and a professional level, just from a satisfaction standpoint. So it's been fun to watch. I enjoy just seeing really where the next several years take you. And Peter, for anybody who maybe has a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit in them, they want to get in touch with you, kind of pick your brain a little bit. What's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, probably Instagram would probably be the best way to connect. My personal Instagram is just dr.peteru, and then our physical therapy page. If you want to reach out there too, you can always reach out there. It's just MotionRx.
Awesome. Well, Peter, I appreciate your time, and if I'm ever down south, I'll be hitting you up.
Awesome. Sounds good, Zach. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Strength and Knowledge Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or have been tuned in for multiple episodes, we would love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Until next time, thanks for listening.